Hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of how to access shader properties in shaders created from Shader Graph. It's quite a header, but there's no better way to put it. So I'm going to go through with you as fast as I can how you can do this via scripting, obviously. So pretty cool. It's kind of a real world tutorial, I suppose. And let's get to it. I'm going to leave 2 links in my description, one to the effect I'm using, created by Brackeys, and the other one is the previous video that I recommend watching just so you kind of know what's going on. And I did modify the dissolve shader just a little bit to be able to do this. It's a short video. It's not torturous, I promise, and I would appreciate it. And you won't be so confused as to what's going on. So again, go through this as fast as I can because I know tutorials can be long and boring. On the main camera, I have my attack class, which I'll go through in a minute. We have a directional light, post-processing volume, which you don't need. The crawler, which I show you how to get in a previous the previous video. The cube, which is the ground he is standing on. Canvas, which has the health and the number 5, and they are separated. And event system, which again you don't need. So let's get right into this. To continue get setting up, make sure your crawler has the box collider on it, or whatever object you're going to be using. Make an animation for him to die, because it's fun. So he does have an animator. Go ahead and plug that into him right here. I think it's called demonstration. Should be the only one in the project if you have a new project like me. And just disconnect everything underneath new state and make your own die state. Make a trigger right here, and I call mine die. And I believe you should be about where I'm at. Just kidding, fireball, make a fireball. So mine is just a sphere. That didn't help you see anything. Mine's just a sphere with a red shader, red material, and it's a 2 times scale. Make sure everything's set to 0 because we're going to be instantiating it. It just makes things a little bit easier. Drag it on into your folder to make a prefab. I already have one, so I'm going to delete that. And you'll now be ready to go. First thing we're going to go through is the bigger class. It's a little bit of a mess. I would have broken it up some more, but again, just for demonstration. So crawler. I have quite a few variables. I have the text that we're going to be updating, excuse me, to help us visually see how close we are to him dying and the effect happening. Max health and current health. We have the skin mesh renderer to get to the material, and the collider and his animator. These strings I showed you how to get in a previous my previous video, and I decided to store them in a variable this time so I can't mistype them in the future. It just makes it easier to type, my strings instead of these strings over and over again, if I had to type them over and over again for whatever reason. Anyway, I went a little above and beyond for everybody. I'm going to be modifying the edge and noise as well on top of the dissolve effect happening. So the edge and noise will give the effect a little bit of a variety every time it happens. And then the options, so I have the speed. That's something I personally wouldn't change. That's something I would keep consistent. Again, if you want to try and just to see if you can do it, I would make a min and max speed. And you'll see how to change that later. So edge width, min and max, noise scale, min and max. I find these values work very well. And then our dissolve over time. -1 means it's fully visible and no dissolve effect is yet shown. So this has to be -1. It really shouldn't be any other value right now, especially at the beginning. We grab all our references, we assign our current health to max health, and we update it on the UI. The update health is what we will call every time the fireball hits, so we add our value. If the value is over, for any reason, the max, we set it back. If it's less than or equal to 0, that means he's dead. We update the UI because we learned that he's dead. And we disable his collider so no more fireballs can hit him and keep calling this method. So our numerator says when he dies, we're going to set the trigger die. That'll play our animation. And I'm going to go ahead and just get this out of the way. And we're going to get our two random values to assign to the edge width and the noise scale. And once I have those, I set them in the material. So those are ready to go for the effect. Wait 3 seconds, so however long your animation is, plus 1 or 2 seconds, whatever you like. And then while dissolve is less than 1, remember, so it's -1 right now, it's going to increase by this much every time it runs. And then we're going to set it, return it, oh my goodness, yield return null, can't talk, and that'll keep running until this is true. And then once it gets to 1 or more, it'll stop running. We'll wait a second and destroy the caller because we don't need him anymore. We defeated him, his effect's over and done, he vanished from the scene, so we can go ahead and delete him. And then I have the, actually let's go ahead and make sure all these are plugged in. So plug in your text amount, or your HP amount right there, however much health you want them to have. And then these variables right here. Again, just for now, I recommend using these. You can modify them later just to make sure it's working. Main camera, make an attack class. The rest of these scripts are very short, I promise. We're almost there. We have a reference to our prefab fireball. Every time I left click, I'm going to call my fireball method. And pretty much this just says I'm instantiating it at the camera position and rotation. That is all. And then on our fireball, go ahead and make fireball class. I have two public numbers, one for speed, how much damage I want it to do, and we have the rigid body. Go ahead and assign it. Since we're instantiating it, we can just do this in update with no conditions, because as soon as I instantiate it, I want it to move. So we add the force from the camera's forward position times the speed. And so when the fireball hits the crawler, this is what this is. When the fireball hits the crawler, I make a reference to the crawler. So the crawler is hit. And then to get the crawler class, you do hit.component in parent crawler. If you're using your own, that may be different. I have to get component in parent because the crawler sits on the parent and the collider that's being hit is a child. If your collider and crawler component are on the same object, you can just get component. We're going to call our update health. We're going to damage it by this amount. And then when it gets to, of course, -1, it'll call die. And we can destroy the fireball because it's done its job. And that is it. That is all. So we can delete that. Go to your fireball prefab. Make sure you have a speed and a damage. Double check your camera. Make sure your fireball prefab is in there and not one from the scene. Delete any fireballs you have in your scene. Make sure it's a prefab. And the crawler, all that is filled out. And once that's it, you should be done. Make sure your animator is set up. You have the new state, which kind of sits in idle. You have your die. Transition. Make sure it has exit time right here is turned off. Otherwise, the new state will continue to go. And then he'll die. But we want him to die as soon as he has 0 health. We don't want him to finish idling and then die. So click on your transition. Turn that off. Forgot to mention that. Very important. And that should be it. You can hit play. 4, 5. My epic death animation. And he dissolves away out of the scene. After a second, he's gone from the scene. And that's it. And just to show it is varying. Right now, let's see. The values I have are 0.03 and 75. So when I do this, click back, pause for a second, you see they changed. It got the random values. And we'll see what that looks like. See, it looked a little bit different. I think that's a nice little touch. A little bit of variation never hurt anybody, especially with something like this. That's not critically important. It's something the player may or may not notice, but it's like subconsciously, then it's more pleasing. And that is it. If you got this far and you completed it, thanks for watching. And I hope this was helpful. If there's any questions, please don't feel free to reach out. I'm just kidding. Feel free to reach out. I love answering questions and helping people. It is my pleasure. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.